You're listening to Negotiator, a podcast led by women of color from two generations, exploring what it means to negotiate power and possibility. With Gitanjali Ponnappa and Alpa Gupta, you'll hear stories and strategies shaped by different life stages, all with one mission: to help you claim your voice and your future.
Corporate politics is simply how decisions actually get made in an organization, beyond formal processes. It is the informal system of influence: who speaks to whom, who gets heard, who gets supported. Most people prepare the facts, sometimes the emotions, but rarely the power dynamics. Decisions are shaped by people, perception, and relationships, but not logic. Politics is already happening around you. The question is, can you see it clearly and act deliberately?
Oof, Appa, this episode about how to navigate politics without becoming someone that you don't recognize or like. I have really enjoyed our prep discussion on it because I know I said this in the last episode that I don't really like when women say, I don't need to work. In the same way, this seems to be an episode where I'm going to tell you about I don't like it when people say, oh, I don't play politics. Oh, politics is not my thing. I stay clear of politics. And my response to all of that is, why? If this is the game and you chose to be part of it, then why wouldn't you play it? Because I think it's terribly naive to think that by you being the only one who's not playing the game, that you're going to get ahead. I don't understand. If this is the game, this is how Lego is played or Ludo is played or Snakes and Ladder is played, and then you say, I don't play the game, then how do you expect to get to the end of the game? Like, there's just a fundamental logic of it I don't get. So let's put some context. I like the definitions that you gave for what you describe as corporate politics. You had also given me some superb examples of politics, really, really good examples. You told me about maybe it was your boss or someone who stole your work without your knowledge. They took your work from you. So tell me some more of these examples and we'll talk about what we do with these.
So I think one time it was also around me bringing an opportunity to my boss and then finding out much later that the conversations had continued behind my back without me being involved in those conversations at all, very deliberately, because another team member was involved instead of me, who was, junior to me in hierarchy, but still was involved in those discussions moving forward. And it shows like there were 3 or 4 meetings that actually happened where I was not even part of them. And when I asked about it, they were like, "Oh, it just happened. It was very sudden. It just progressed. And in that progression, they forgot to involve me somehow, or just forgot about me completely." And that for me was definitely an example of politics, or dirty
And
politics.
it's that sneaky behavior.
The sneakiness,
The sneaky behavior. So here's the thing about politics, that the way that I look at it, right? Because when people say they don't play politics or there is politics, what I think about is less whether it's dirty or clean or allowed or fair or ethical or not. I look at it as simply as this is what's going on. And now you have a choice whether to participate in it or not. And if you are, sadly, part of capitalism, you just are participating in it. You're what is the word? Complicit? You are complicit in it by simply having a job, because that's how capitalism works. Now, the part where I like to emphasize is politics doesn't have to be about manipulation. It doesn't have to be Machiavellian. My brother used to say that our grandmother was a manipulator par excellence. That if she ever was in the corporate world, if she ever had a job like you and I do, she would excel at it, because she didn't think of herself as a manipulator. What she thought of herself was, I'm simply a person who needs to get something done. How do I get it done? I'm a person who needs to get from A to B. What are the resources available to me to get from A to B? She
Mm-hmm.
never thought, oh, I don't want B. I don't have to get to B. Those were not her thoughts at all. Her thought was, I have to go from A to B. What's the easiest way, best way, fastest way? Also, perhaps she thought about what is the way that gets her ahead of other people to B.
You leave bodies along the way, and you need to be okay with that. With
Okay.
the example that I just mentioned, right? It
Yeah.
was done intentionally. So it
Mm-hmm.
was intentionally done to leave me out of that. And that was a very conscious decision that was made by my boss, right? For whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Since our theme for our conversation is about how not to get dirty in these politics,
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to say not to leave dead bodies behind. So I truly believe that I have been able to build a career for myself where I feel perfectly clean. I feel perfectly fine with my humanity. And I
Mm-hmm.
will take it as a compliment if people tell me she didn't leave dead bodies behind. And I still
Mm-hmm.
managed to be successful. Right. And I know this topic is uncomfortable. There's
Mm-hmm.
data that shows that in negotiations, there's something called anticipatory negative backlash. So
Mm-hmm.
anticipatory negative backlash. What that is we assume, we as women, we anticipate that there will be some sort of backlash, negative, something terrible will happen if we negotiate or if we go in to have a conversation about, hey, why were you sneaking around behind my back? Or how come you forgot about me? So we anticipate that there will be a negative backlash, which changes our behavior. And the change in the behavior is we just decide not to have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
A study called social incentives for gender differences in the chances to initiate negotiation. Complicated statement. Basically, what it said is women hesitate to even have the conversation. That's all it is. So this person, Hannah Riley, her point is simply the hesitation. We even pause before we go in to have a conversation. And that hesitation, we're not imagining it, we're actually doing it. It's a normal behavior for, like the way you said, I did it yesterday. We stop ourselves from going and having a conversation. And now that you know it, Appa, since you and I just talked about it, you have to become aware of that. You have to
Mm-hmm.
create an awareness in yourself that it's not about you being confident or not confident. It's about the fact that you have a pattern of behavior. And the pattern of behavior is you anticipate negative backlash. So you decide not to engage in that conversation at all.
But I have a question to this because I,
Okay.
I totally did that yesterday. I didn't have a
Yeah.
conversation, firstly, because I didn't think it was worth it. And I anticipated negative backlash, which I didn't really want to get into. So I
Yep.
did avoid complete avoidance situation in this
Uh-huh.
case.
Yes.
But I know as the hesitation is not imagined, but is the negative backlash imagined? Because it is learned behavior,
Mm-hmm.
where over a period of time, women have brought up certain issues, been
Mm-hmm.
faced with backlash. Um, so I don't think that is imagined either, right? This has
Yes.
happened for a certain reason. So maybe let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So first, it's not imagined anticipatory backlash. It is real. So, and in previous episodes, and when we talk about negotiations, we always touch upon that there is a gender penalty. That
Mm-hmm.
women, when we are assertive, it's seen as aggressive. Whereas when a man is assertive, it's seen as leadership. There is absolutely that perception that translates itself into that backlash. But now, the point that I would like for us to work through in this episode is knowing that we're anticipating backlash, what do you do about it? So if you know, for example, there's a car ahead of you and you're going to be crashing into it, you brace for that impact. You hope like hell that the airbags are going to deploy, but you brace for impact. I have to tell you what brace for impact reminds me. So my brother, he was in the armed forces and he used to jump out of planes. And he has always used this every time I've had a tough time in life. I know something's coming. I know there's an illness. I can see it. It's going to become bigger. or there's something tough, he would tell me, all you can do is brace for impact. You know that there is impact. You know that there is negative backlash, but you prepare for it and you try and minimize it. Can you eliminate it? Not yet, not in our generation. Maybe Kian's wife, maybe in her generation. But in our generation, no, we can't stop it. We can anticipate for it and we can prepare for it. So it's not imagined, Papa, not at all. I want to pop an example in here for you for why I truly believe that it is a choice to participate in politics in the sense of how you do it. So you keep yourself clean and shiny, and you keep your identity, and you keep your sense of morality, maybe even. I've heard others mention to me, I want to let the work talk for itself. I want my manager to just know what I'm doing because they see me every day doing it. I want recognition because I am the person doing the work. There's no one else doing it. And very, very early in my career, and I'm going to say maybe 2004, I had a career counselor when I was in Accenture, Karen. And Karen told me, you have to talk. You have to say what you do. You have to document what you do. You have to take the mic in quotes. You have to find your own platform. And her logic for that is, at that time already, Accenture was 200, 300,000 people. Okay, in a 200, 300,000 people, if you leave it to a process, like a performance review process, if you leave something to something anonymous like a process, then you should expect to receive what you receive because you haven't taken charge. And when you take charge, you increase the likelihood of you getting what you actually wanted. But if you leave it to a process and you say, I trust the process without actually engaging in the process, then you must accept what it brings. Now, by engaging, I don't mean get dirty. By engaging, I mean participate.
No, I totally understand that, and I'm totally on board with what you're saying. If any junior colleague comes to me, this is exactly the kind of feedback that I would give them as well. I do think, especially when it comes to promotions, when it comes to at least standing for what you did. I mean, that is what brought me, even when we were talking about it earlier, what brought me into having quite an open conflict at work was around recognition and being pushed down and not understanding. I can take a lot, but when it comes to exactly these topics, I get very particular about them because I know the value that I bring to a team, and when I see that that is not being recognized either monetarily or even just verbally at some points, to me that is I take that very seriously, and that's where I think it is important. You need to know the choices you have, and that if you don't say anything, you're enabling the behavior as well to continue.
True. I think we should talk a little bit about those choices, because you were telling me about how you relaxed about a certain conversation. Just remind me about that, where you said you look like you didn't really overly care, and then when you said it, people realized that you care. Give me a little bit more context on that.
When I was shifting teams and there was an organizational change happening, I wanted to make sure that I was front and center. At least the leaders of that new organization knew who I was, so that I was positioned accurately. And I knew that there was a lot of MYO discussions. MYO in our word is multi-year optimization discussions going on, and I just didn't want to be a number that was left to reorg basically. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure that I was placed in the right place and I got the right opportunities. And that was exactly the conversation that I had with the leaders of the of the team, is that this is the kind of work I want to be doing, and I would like to be aligned with these kinds of people. I was able to basically build a kind of a nice strategy businessy arm for the work that I wanted to be doing as well. But I also didn't want to change my managerial reporting line. So that is what I was kind of, ensuring that they weren't going to move me around like a chess piece, and I would have a new manager and a new relationship to deal with right before I went on maternity. So yeah, I didn't push for it because I know they really wanted to move me, but I kind of
Yeah.
stood my ground in the way that I didn't want change coming into my
Yeah.
life, additional change coming into my life before I, left for maternity, right? And I also wanted to make sure that my longevity in the team would be long enough because my now manager knows me, and he would at least fight for me a little bit in case such
Yeah.
decisions were being made in the larger reorganization. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing the work I wanted to be doing, but I didn't
Yeah.
want to change managerial relationships. And that was quite hard given that they were reorging everybody.
Yeah. Did any of that feel dirty?
It didn't. No, it did not feel
Yeah.
dirty. It always doesn't feel comfortable for me to have some of
Sure.
these conversations. And I think that is the barrier I need to overcome. That's the first, the comfort level of having these conversations. And the second is to ensure that I stick to my points, and that because, we spoke about it earlier, that sometimes I can get into that agreeable state, like
Hmm.
personality trait.
Yeah.
So I need to ensure that I hold my ground
Yeah.
even if I feel like I'm being pushed. And like the conversation that I avoided yesterday was with another woman, because I knew that it would become a little catty. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't sure if I wanted to get into the cattiness, because she was
Hmm.
speaking on my behalf constantly on the call. And
Yeah.
I didn't want her to speak on my behalf, but I didn't know how to bring it up with her in a way that, because she kind of has taken this like leadership role, and I think in her mind, she's leading me.
Hmm. So here's a few observations. Observation number one: discomfort does not mean dirty. So that's something that is very clear to you. You just need to get comfortable slowly, gradually with practice. But discomfort does not mean dirty. Discomfort is just simply what it is. It's not comfortable. But that doesn't mean that you were manipulative. It doesn't mean that you went behind somebody's back and stabbed them. Instead, what it means that you were clear and, like you said, held your ground. And all of that came because you also were prepared to have that conversation. So that's just an observation from what you've described.
Hmm.
The other observation that I want to make is from a negotiator. We've talked about the detective approach. And in the detective approach, what we say always is you start with some preparation. You have to get yourself in the mind space so that you're not just jumping in or rambling on or giving something up, or the way you said, agreeable behavior, right? What we need to do is prepare. So you prepare rationally. You had made a list. I didn't want a new manager. Rationally, you had prepared, I am the best person because of these targets or deliverables. But you also prepared your emotional layer. I don't want to be pushed around. I want to be in charge. And most importantly was that third layer, which is the political layer. You understood when you went into the conversation, these are the guys, the people who have power.
Hmm.
These are the ones who influence the decision. And once you understood that, you quite naturally and intuitively played the game. And in
Hmm.
some way, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. Did you actually enjoy it, being in charge of your own destiny, of your own choices, and the way that you could lay it out?
I do. I don't hate it. Let's put it that way. I don't
Okay.
like. I would prefer if I didn't have to always, fight for myself constantly,
Yep.
and that
Yep.
there were structures in place that actually
Hmm.
worked in
Yeah.
corporate, where the stuff that we are promised, like the manager relationship, the you know the which I feel at some point in consulting worked a little bit better. I don't know if this is your experience, Gitanjali, but I will say that for me, corporate has been literally each man for their own,
Hmm.
and it's constantly this. It's more this than the work,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I wish that was in place, but I'm not averse to it. I realize that if I want to get forward in my life and, have
Yes.
a career trajectory, I just have to do it. There's no,
Yeah.
if me saying I'm not going to play the politics or I'm not going to play the game, if you don't play the game, you're just going to be left behind. You say that, a lot of women say, "Oh, I'm not playing the game," or I just want to focus on my work." They are usually the ones that are playing the game the most.
Yes. Yeah, possibly.
And for me, it's also important. I think understanding psychology, understanding human behavior, and being able to read the room. I think those are the three things. As an empath for me as well. Like it has helped me
Mhm.
in many situations because I do
Yeah.
think I'm able to gauge w- how honest people are being, or
Mhm.
how things like that. And usually when I get it wrong, that's when it really bothers me,
Mhm.
which has happened to me like once or twice.
So, okay, please don't have the expectation that you're always going to get it right.
No, of
There
course
are
not.
times that you
Of
are going to
course,
not get it right every now
people
and
play the
then. That
game better
happens
than
too.
you, right?
And
And
that's also another good analogy. People play the game. You just play it better or worse or to the right or to the left, and you have your strengths or your weaknesses, but we're all playing the game in some form or the other, either
hmm
actively by participating or
hmm
passively, even though you're saying you're not playing the game, even passive, you're
someone
still
else is
a
using you.
pawn. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
There's a team that's currently like in my organization, and the boss keeps telling the people in the team that she just doesn't want a team. She doesn't know how she got this team. She doesn't want to go forward. She just doesn't understand how she's getting all of these
Uh-huh.
opportunities. She just doesn't know. She doesn't want it. And I'm being told this, and I know this person, and I'm just like, you do realize she's also managing how she's communicating with the team to feel like
Yeah.
she's not doing anything. It's just
Hmm.
happening to her. And she actually
Hmm.
hates it. She just hates
Yeah.
it. She doesn't know how she's getting promoted to director,
Oh
but
my
she hates
gosh.
it.
So
And there are people who are coming and telling me, yeah, but she doesn't want it. She doesn't actually want it. I'm like looking at all of them and being like, come on. Like, let's not be
let's
naive
take
about these
exactly. Let's not be
situations.
naive. That's absolutely true. It is naive. That is the word that I would use. I don't have an equivalent word in any other language. Maybe in Hindi it's buddhu, but don't be
Yeah, I think
naive.
it's naive. It's so I can't actually increase your salary, and I have no time to
Let's
manage these, managerial relationships because I have no time because I'm just things are just happening to me, and she's been able to manage the her personality and what she's doing for the team so well that there are people who actually believe
Mhm.
that she doesn't have the time to do what she's paid for, which is manage the team, because she's just so busy and she's just
Yeah, I
managing
do.
up all the time, and she has
Yeah.
no time to provide guidance for her team even though she's getting promoted.
Yeah. Let's
And to me
let's
it's bizarre.
let let's talk a little bit about why are women like this? And do we see men like this? Do we see, is it a 50-50? Men also behave like this, women also behave like this, but only when women behave like this, we call it catty. But when men behave like it, we say, oh, they understand the dynamics of a team, right? The
Mm,
thing that I think when you and I talk, we very often talk about Indians because you and I are Indian. We talk about,
mhm,
do Indians support each other? And I'm replacing that question with, do women support each other? And my mostly educated sort of wrapper around whether we're talking about two women or we're talking about two Indians or we're talking about similar, let's say, dynamics or ecosystems is, let's take Indians as an example. We have grown up and we are still in an environment that we are not a full blown first world country with luxuries. What we've grown up with is resource constraint. So you
mhm,
have 5 million people applying for 10,000 positions. You have 1,000 people applying for the one seat in a medical school, let's say, right? So the,
mhm,
the, the scale of the competition is confounding. It is not, the scale is not similar in America. The scale is possibly only similar in China, but they have a different form of an economy. So in
mhm,
India, we grow up with the pie is just not big enough for all of us. So it's very grand for me sitting in Zurich, Switzerland to say, let's make the pie bigger. But the behavior of Indian and Indian or woman and woman comes from the fact that the pie is just not big enough. And so we have to fight for every tiny little slice. So historically, there have not been enough women in leadership. And so we have learned behavior of resource constraint, that I can't open this up and support other people because the pie is so tiny and I need my slice. Same thing for Indians. I cannot support other Indians because our mindset, even though we might live in Denmark and UK and Switzerland and Czech Republic, our mindset is of the pie is so tiny, I have to fight for it. I just wanted to explain that behavior so that we don't necessarily go down a path of bashing Indians or bashing women, but explaining it as a social construct that drives that behavior. Do you see it the same way? Do you buy into that dirtiness actually comes not from a lack of a moral backbone, but comes from a social construct?
I do. I mean, I've definitely faced this. Women, for me, have only helped me when they have seen a benefit for themselves a lot of the
Mhm,
time. I can see that often, I am used as a pawn and I see it. And it's okay for me as long as that me being used as a pawn is helping my larger goal. And
mhm,
however, I have to say, I work in the Czech Republic, and Czechs also, they come from communism, and they also, I think, have that mindset around the pie that you were talking about, that the pie is not big
mhm,
enough. And if you have a little
mhm,
bit of the pie, then, I don't have enough, that kind of mindset. That's a very communist mindset as well. However, I think it's the the number of Czechs that is different from India, because Czechs can be very cliquey. Like they can actually be
uh-huh,
together and help each other. They would rather help each other than help the
mhm,
foreigner, for example, even
mhm,
if that foreigner is more, let's say, deserving, right?
mhm.
And I've
Yeah,
I've noticed this in these environments that it's very hard to break into that clique. I don't know what would happen if they were against they were pitted against each other. And that I see in India. I mean, again, there's so many of us, right? So there are, of
mhm,
course, Indians who have helped me, and there are, of
mhm,
course, Indians who haven't. So it's hard for me to say because there's just
yeah,
so many of us.
yeah,
But I totally agree with you. From the time I was born, no matter how privileged I was born, it was always a competition. Everything was a
yeah,
competition.
yes,
And we have that competitive mindset already from when we are born, that we need to be further. We need to be a little bit better. We spoke about the marks, right? Why
yeah,
98? Why not 99? How much did this girl get in your class? That was
yeah,
always there.
mhm,
But it would be nice. I mean, especially given that we moved abroad, it would be nice if some of us think that the pie doesn't always need to be either for you or for me. Because often
yeah,
I think if we are able to be collaborative and pursue joint goals,
mhm.
the pie would be bigger, or the pie could be
Okay.
shared in a better way.
So let's try and get this into now. What do you do with it? Because I think what we've done, which has helped me, is provide the context of this is how it is. This is the picture. This is our shared, let's say, cultural and national ethnic
Mhm.
history that we bring into our workplace. This is our gender experience that we have brought into the workplace. We have brought in a certain element of the nationality in the workplace.
Mhm.
We've unpacked different aspects of what the workplace is like. And of course, the culture of the organization itself. Like I was talking with somebody the other day who is with Amazon Web Services, and he said the culture in Amazon is one of speed. It just is. And so if you don't buy into speed, it's not the right organization for you. So if you are, and if they had to make choices between speed, I'm just making up an example, speed and 100% quality, they would say 100% speed and 99 quality. Like it's okay. You don't have to have 100. So there are choices. So there's something to be said also for the organization's culture. Now,
Mhm.
systemically, yes, of course, it would be really nice if we could all have the mindset of bigger pie. It would be really nice if the processes go to HR, call the head ethics hotline,
Yeah,
go
I've
to
given
your
up
skip
on that.
level manager, right? It would all be very nice if the structures worked that way. Now let's imagine that's not the reality. The reality is the minute you call a hotline or you call HR, you've got a target on your back. How do you now deal with that is the environment we're operating in without getting dirty? So I want to walk you through a few steps and you tell me what you think of those steps. So one, I think you have to be prepared. You have to be planned. What does prepared and planned look like? You have to understand all of these layers. Like I said, the rational, the emotional, the political. And sometimes if it's important enough, write it down. So you have to have an understanding of the game, the players in the game. And then you have to get comfortable with that uncomfortable part, which is having these conversations before the actual meeting. And that's the key. It really is important that you treat the meeting or the email literally like a summary, like a commitment, like a sign off. And you do all your machinations and all your, in Hindi, the Shakuni behavior, all of your, conniving and planning offline, individually. And then, very importantly, and this I say very importantly because it's something for negotiator that I believe in very firmly, you have to have generosity. You can't get caught up in this game in the way that it makes your head hurt. What you have to be is generous about it. Be relaxed. Don't sound desperate. Be
Yeah.
cool. Hold it lightly. Go in with options. Have those conversations. Generously give away something so that you can get something. And then ultimately position your ask so that you don't feel like you manipulated. What you did was you aligned, and words make a difference. Could you follow
I,
that
I have
structure?
I could. I really understood the importance of one-on-ones,
Yeah.
like multiple one-on-ones, and why
Yes.
they exist. I used to always wonder, like, why aren't we all just meeting, and just making decisions together? And then I came
Yes.
to corporate, and then I realized, like, that's why there are so many one-on-ones, because it's about also building relationships. You can't expect one
Yes.
person to do something for you just because you exist.
Mhm.
The person needs to
Absolutely.
find common ground with you, have an
Yes.
understanding. And that's why it's really important to build that relationship over a period of time, I think. And
Yeah.
there's another thing you mentioned, is understanding the power dynamics, understanding who
Mhm.
has the power. That's really
Yes.
important. But also understanding that if your values don't align with the people who have power in that organization, that might not be the right organization for you.
100%.
That's something
Yeah.
I've learned over a period of time, and chose to move to enterprise architecture, which is a very technical organization,
Mhm.
over an organization where, on a functional basis, I was more aligned.
Mhm.
But I chose to do that because I wanted the leader of that organization gave me better feels. you know,
Yeah.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm going to say it in that way. I don't know how else
Okay.
to say it.
Okay. So I say it for you if you're feeling shy. I've been told very often, why don't you use your feminine side more? I've been told, hey, your sexuality, men will do things for you. I've also been rudely told, you're so exotic. You could ask for anything and you'd get it. Okay. So now leave the tone out of it. What I feel, this is my opinion because I find that ignoring that we have that sort of dynamic as men and women, or women and women, or mother child. And by that, I mean, sometimes you have people in an organization who want to parent you. They
Yeah.
want to be like, oh, come here, I'll take care of you. Right.
Yeah.
Or you
Yeah.
have this paternalistic view. That is the reality. It is what it is. Now,
Hmm.
all I can do is I can choose to tune into it and tone it up, or I can choose to simply tune into it and not tone it up. My choice through my life, because I chose where the line is. For me, the line was, I don't even know how to use my sexuality. Like, I literally don't, right? That was my line. But there are women who have a different line, and that's okay. The point is, it's your line. And otherwise, this gets exhausting. So you have to be mindful of your line. Now, if a man or an older woman or someone to the right or the left chooses to help me, I'm happy for that. Why won't I take it? I'm not going to say, no, I don't want your help. But I have to know that that's the dynamic and there's my line. And I have to be so present in understanding that model, because people will do what they do. But you decide where you draw your line and do you cross over it or not. You decide
You
what is
also
dirty, not someone else.
Mhm. And you also choose the game you're going to play, right? Like when
Yes.
I was choosing between those two teams, I knew that I would be probably more successful in playing the game here
Yeah.
rather than the other team, just because of the way that it was set up then. Now it's
Yeah.
changed. There's always change. And there's another thing that, I was reading about, where in corporate, it's important that you know that you are self-serving to a certain extent, that you
Mhm.
understand what you want and where you want to go. And I cannot tell you, even today, I cannot tell you, was this the best decision for me? I don't know. But at that point, when I was making the decision with the cards that I was given,
Yeah.
my decision or my choice was not just pick it out of a box and I'll go with the flow. It wasn't. It was, I made a decision based on where I felt I could thrive, where I could still have
Yes.
my values, whatever moral values that I have, and play the game to a part that I would understand.
Ah,
It's
ah,
we will see how
beautiful.
that goes, but
Yes.
that's how I look at every decision. Is can I do this? Do I believe that I can do this here?
Yes. Yes. And on that very powerful note about your values, the purpose that you have, where do you want to thrive, how much do you want to play, how you play, I want us to rethink politics, not as manipulation. I want us to rethink politics simply as this is the reality. This is what I'm given. This is the thali, the plate. This is what
Mm-hmm.
is here, and this is what I'm given. Now I can choose. I think it's as important to not ignore informal power, the power of those one-on-ones, the power of the coffee chat, the power of talking to the person at the kita when you're dropping off your child. All of that informal network, that informal power, equally important. Do not go into important conversations cold. Have the meeting before the meeting. Have the one-on-one before the one-on-one. Have something in a way that you have built up towards the actual meeting simply being a revelation of the final statement, a summary,
Mm-hmm.
and not relying too much or not relying at all on the good work speaks for itself. No, it does not. Your work has no voice. You have a voice. And as a last line, please change in your mind that expecting fairness is not the same as preparing for reality, because this is the reality. And now you have a choice of how you play in that reality. All right, Appa, that was an excellent conversation. I really, really enjoyed that.
That's a wrap for this episode of Negotiator. If you like this episode, share it forward and help us all rise together. Your voice matters. Stand up for yourself. And when you can, stand up for someone else too. Until next time, this is Negotiator, empowering you to become unstoppable.